kind of shocking. But yeah, glad to have you here. And we got some really good speakers tonight. So you're going to have some more information. Hopefully you can digest it still. If not, hopefully you can digest the Domino's pizza at the very minimum. But yeah, I'll get started and pass on to Mark. It's great to have you guys here and look forward to spending the night with you.
Alrighty, thank you, Lydia. And I forgot to check, Chris, are we good up the back? Yep, good. Okay, you will see Chris. Normally you don't see the cameraman, but today we're different. You will. So you're going to see some amazing talks today, some presentations from people building an AI blockchain, anywhere in the middle. No quantum kind of stuff yet, but if anyone is building in that space and wants to have a chat with us, wants to present the cool stuff they're doing, please do come along. This used to be called the Australian DeFi Association, and it was a great kind of meetup group network. And as AI started playing a stronger role in what we're building and what we're doing, we decided to change the name earlier this year. So by way of background, because some people might not know who we are and what we're doing, my name is Mark. I am the president of this association. My co-founder there, Arturo, is going to present a little bit later on. Great to see some new faces, some familiar faces. There's a whole lot of things that are happening in emerging technology, and we're keen to showcase, inspire. And the cool thing about this is you had the networking. We're going to finish up around 7:30. There'll be more networking. So if you're building, looking for work, wanting people to try out the tech that you're building, or just curious, this is the place for you. And we record it. So last month's event will be out soon as Chris gets it off his drive and shares it with me. We'll have that, and also this one too. So a few updates around the house, and then we're going to get to some cool presentations. I'll present on some things too that I'm doing, and just, we'll be here for all the lessons, networking, and all that kind of fun stuff. So updates and announcements. The main one is that the DECA conference is going on, Digital Economy Council of Australia. Hands up if you've come over from that event just now. There's a few of you. All of the others that did sign up and say yes to it, they're probably still on their way. I know that there's quite a few other events, but they'll have to stand up the back, so that's okay. But yeah, there's been some great things. It's day 2. Day 1 yesterday was awesome. There was the roundtable on agentic economy and stablecoins and future payments, all that fun stuff that you can see on the right. This was the morning presentation with OKX CEO Kate Cooper up on stage. There is more tomorrow and a lot of lessons that will be shared by the Digital Economy Council of Australia. I run the AI working group as part of that. So if you're in the AI space and are interested in joining a group that was doing a lot of blockchain technology, because it's digital economy, AI plays a strong part of that. We're talking down in Canberra, we're submitting reports to politicians, we're giving data that is needed to actually make sure we get the right kind of regulations in place for the emerging tech that we love. There was also some great debate stuff. And for once, I actually won a debate with my team, which was great. We were in the affirmative. Thank you. We were in the affirmative on can you trust AI with money? And we said, yes, you can, but with certain guardrails in place. And so it was interesting to see the back and forth. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see some posts on that. And the next one is we're going to get to some of the talks. Now, we've got some amazing speakers tonight. I'll just introduce them all. So first up, we're going to have Armina Rosenberg of Minotaur Capital up on stage next. She's doing some really cool stuff with AI. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, probably some of the most impressive, because it's not just now that what she's going to show is has been built. It's been over, I think 12 months ago that we spoke. Yourself and your co-founder Thomas have done some really amazing things end to end in the research space for what they're doing to help run their fund. So that's really cool. Speaker after that is going to be Arturo Rodriguez over here. Hand up. There you go. And Arturo and I used to work together. Arturo's come out of Project Acacia, where they were doing some securitization kind of work, doing that on blockchain, end-to-end programmatic workflows for the future of money. But more interestingly is that there was an AI tool that was built up underneath all of that. So you're going to see some of that. And then we're going to have Sophie Bowler. Sophie here, who is from Zodia Custody, who has, they're bringing AI into their business, a regulated business that's doing some really cool things. And this is like the lessons of how do you actually bring AI in properly into an organization. So it's fine that we can create anything, but it needs to fit into how businesses work. So Lydia and Sophie are going to talk about that. And then Chris and I are going to talk a really fun topic, edge of your seat stuff, AI governance, and how important that is. Because the thing is, there is a lot more talk. There's rumbling, so to speak, and there's a lot more businesses, industries that are trying to get their heads around this. It's cool. AI was novel. Now it's getting serious. How do we do it safely? So we'll talk about that, plus some presentations, networking at the end. Amina up on stage, if you want to come up, and I'll stop the share so you can share your screen. Amina Rosenberg. So I'm going to put that.
Yeah, that's fine.
There.
Okay. Right. Share screen. Let me adjust the mic down to shorty height. Okay. So I'll just run through a couple of slides first, but basically, to let you know what Minotaur is, basically, I'm going to talk you through how we use AI in fundamental investing. And so the first thing is like how AI lets a two-person firm cover global equities. Magellan and Platinum, they're the big sort of gorillas in the global equity space. They have over 100 people each. So how does Minotaur compete with them when we're only two people? Then talk to you about how noise turns into insight. So there's obviously a fire hose of information with AI. How do you translate that into a stock specific edge? And the way that we do that is through building agents. So we now have agents that cover certain companies, they cover certain sectors and certain thematics. And we have, I think, a investment team that is 20 AI agents. So they all cover different sectors, but some of them are also cross-sector specialists as well. And then we'll talk about where human judgment comes in. So I can tell you all about how awesome AI is, but what do humans need to come in for? Firstly, who are we? So Minotaur Capital, we are two portfolio managers. We were founded in November 2023. And that was, ChatGPT was less than 12 months old at that stage. So we thought if you were to sit down and start a global funds management firm today, knowing what we know about AI and technology, how would you reinvent that with a blank sheet of paper? And I'm super fortunate in that my other founder, Thomas Rice, he is a great software developer as well as an amazing fund manager. And that's definitely been, a source of our edge. But honestly, I think that the main source of our edge is the fund managers themselves. So every global equities fund will tell you that their main competitive advantage is the fund managers and the pattern recognition and I guess experience they have over the decades of experience that they have. So Thomas and I have over 4 decades of funds management experience between us. And we've developed, I think, an investment philosophy and process that is quite unique and been shown to outperform over the last 20 years. That's only been 2 years for Minotaur. So the fund has been going for the last 2 years. We've done 22.6% per annum since inception, which is about 6 percentage points better than the MSCI All Country World Index, which is our benchmark. So early days, but so far, I think the combination of funds management experience plus the AI is yielding us what we think is alpha. And we didn't build this because AI knows how to invest. AI is not responsible for our alpha generation. It's a primitive. It's a database or an API. It's a foundation that you can build on. Your process and judgment are the IP, and if you can repeat that, then you can automate it a lot. We like to divide the world down into quant funds and fundamental funds. And quant funds have always had a bit of an edge on kind of information processing. They do things like take signals in the market, process them down to figure out what companies are going to do well or not. Whereas the fundamental guys, we build things from the bottom up. So we, build out full discounted cash flow models and do deep research into what the company does and what its revenue and earnings drivers are. That process has always been slow because it's about a lot of natural language processing. But obviously, with the advent of AI and large language models, all that natural language processing can be done in an accelerated way. But the firm's use of AI is bounded by the skill of the manager. Like I like to say that if you add AI to a crappy fund manager, they're still a crappy fund manager. They're still going to generate you crappy returns. And look, obviously everyone is reading the same news. So there's all the filings and transcripts and calls, all the information that you get, everyone is reading that. So what actually moves the thesis? basically a human, can only triage what it has time to read, but an agent can read everything. They surface everything. They read through everything and then only surface what matters. I mean, this audience probably doesn't need to know what a large language model is, but just to kind of distill it down, it's basically a brain in a jar. So it's trained up to a point in time and then frozen. It knows the world to that date. On its own, it can't see, act, or do anything. And it's all about text in and text out. It's only as good as kind of what you put in. And so it's all of those controllables that you need to do as a fund manager. And the model is only one part. It's the systems that you build on top of the models that do all the work. And that's the systems of that is the instructions that you give it, the context and data that you give it, and the tools that you allow it to have access to. So for us, we have been going for the last 2 years, and we've seen the full evolution of using AI in our investment process because we've seen how well the models have gotten. And because we've got a fund manager who's also a software developer, we're able to iterate and, I guess, figure out what's going well and what's not and improve the processes very, very fast. So we've gone from just building chatbots to building tools on top of that to adding the memory and data and the context to putting that into workflows. And now we have agents. And as I said before, companies, sectors, and thematics are covered by our agents. They effectively ingest all this information and data. They come to conclusions, and then they kind of reflect on those conclusions and surface them to us for veracity at that point. But that was all the boring, slidey part. Let me show you what it actually looks like. So these are our agents. The top row are our 5 operations agents. So Kairos was one of the first agents we developed. I always said to my husband I wanted a Hotmail PA. Now I have one. He does all of my scheduling, my calendar management, meeting coordination. Every time someone comes into my email asking for a meeting, he surfaces that to me. Metis is our financial controller, so she makes sure that we pay things like invoices on time and the like. Cadence is my IR and distribution person. I don't have one, so she's really handy at telling me like when I last pinged a potential investor and whether I should be reaching out to them and the like. I'll explain Praxis and Vigil in a second. But then we have our investment team. So as I said before, our investment team covers certain sectors. So our oldest analyst is Telos, who's about a month old, but he covers AI and semiconductors. And the way that our analysts work is they have a coverage universe. So Telos has a coverage of 141 stocks. And so every time one of his stocks comes out with an earnings release or a transcript or some sort of presentation, he ingests that straight away and then reflects on it. He also subscribes to his own Substacks. And the way that he does that is he'll find out what Substacks seem interesting, and then he'll say to us, "Are you okay with me subscribing to it? If so, can you sign up my email?" So all of my agents have their own email addresses. They all have their own Slack channels. So I can ask them things over Slack. I can ask them things over email. One of my most fun things to do is have a potential investor ask me about a stock and CC one of my analysts, and they'll come back with a view. All of them also have what we call equipped modules. So these are skills specific to Telos. So I'm sure everyone knows what a skill is, but to very quickly explain what a skill is, Claude came out with the ability to ingest skills. So, obviously, if you give too much information to a generic large language model at the front, it degrades the context window. So it's better to keep all the skills off to a side. The way that I explain it to any layman, which is no one in this room, but I like to say it's like in the Matrix when Neo calls up the kung fu skill. That's what like skills in the Claude marketplace is like. And another reason why our agents are so powerful, and one of the reasons why we don't have we used to actually, we had one generic agent do everything, and it was called Torient. Torient does a lot of our backend and systems. But the reason we don't have Torient running on everything is because these agents can we've equipped them with their own skills, but they can also ask to develop their own skills. So we'll often go back after 2 weeks or say to them, "Hey, based on all the conversations that we've had with you over the last 2 weeks, what do you need access to that would make your job easier?" And in the case of, let's go with Lumen, because he has the most interesting skills. So in the case of Lumen, he's got things like an industry model video games, which is video game specific drivers to model out financial models that are specific to video games only. If I click into that, you can see here, it's a skill to ground video game company models and research in gaming specific frameworks maintained in Labyrinth. So Labyrinth is our internal research repository, and that's an add-on to our financial modeling skill, not a replacement. And, to kind of illustrate that even further, we've looked at the gaming industry, the games industry for a really long time. And so we have a return on capital framework that really goes through like exactly how you would build out the financial model for a games company. And this is what I mean by you need your unique investment philosophy and process to embed into the AI. We have spent a lot of time kind of walking through how we make decisions, why we make decisions. The big thing that Minotaur does is we think that a company that's like going through some sort of change, like some sort of structural long-term strategy change, that's a good time to look at a company. And so we have all these examples from our past of where that's happened, and we've fed that into Taurian and the large language models. So to go back, the other thing we can do, Lumen also has like YouTube stats, which is what he asked for. He just covers a lot of stocks that where YouTube subscribers to a channel is an interesting metric. So he tracks all of that. And then with this is a gaming event tracker. This is a skill that he's learned and that he keeps learning on. So that's basically him saying, I'm going to track every major gaming showcase and build out an information and data repository for that I can use for making investment decisions in the future. But you can do things like, say, what's you on there? And again, like the difference between asking ChatGPT this and asking Lumen is he has a lot of specific information and context on how to do this. What else can I show? Quickly going back to the agents. So most of the agents cover sectors, but we also have some really cool agents like Baku's our Japan activist agent. So I went to Tokyo recently, and activists are really active in Japan. And so Baku's job is to track any company that might be an activist target, but also track any like live activist target right now. So he's keeping all of that information for him. Then we have a guy like Lazarus, who looks like a dead Christian Bale because he is looking for all the opportunities that the market's left for dead. So he's looking for like the really deep value stuff. And what's really interesting is if I go to a stock like, let's go to NeoWiz. Actually, I'll let Lumen keep running that. If I go to a stock like NeoWiz, so NeoWiz came across our radar. It's a gaming company in South Korea, and it develops a game called Lies of P, which is I think a AA rated game. So we got Lumen to create what's called an initiation report. So for those of you not familiar with the industry, an initiation report is basically a report that says like things like what the company does, what are its revenue and earnings drivers, what's the bull and the bear case. And the way that initiations are created, well, actually, the first iteration of this is we create a bunch of business files, which is a summary of the business like this, a summary of management and financials. And the reason we do that step first is if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it for an investment case on NeoWiz, it'll tell you very quickly whether it's a buy or a sell and then find all the evidence to back up whether it's a buy or a sell. So the way that we do it is like we don't want an investment case. We just want you to build a whole bunch of information first, which is what this is, and then go back and give us the thesis on it. And then the funny thing was, so Lumen wrote the thesis on this, and then we actually got it cross-checked by Lazarus. So you can see here, Lumen initiated on the company and did a post-initiation review and the like. And then you had Lazarus who came in, and if you look at the specific things that Lazarus is looking for, it's probably a bit hard to read on the screen, but I'll see if I can find it. So Lazarus is really concentrated on how much cash this business has and the cash backing of this business. So, this company trades at a market cap of 380 million Korean won, but its cash backing is 360 million Korean won. And that's what Lazarus likes about it, because you're basically getting the optionality on their games development for free because they trade for their cash on their books. So that's an example of the two working together. I'm conscious of time. Let me go back to so basically, actually I'll give you a bit of a very quick history lesson, which is where it came from. So the very the genesis and inspiration for Minotaur was this stock called Axon Enterprise, which has done shitty over the last year, which we haven't owned. But basically, Thomas discovered Axon back in 2017. Axon is the company that makes all the police tasers in the world. And there was an article on CNBC's website about how it makes all the tasers, but it was shifting all this investment into the body camera business. And the way the body cameras worked is they were giving away body cameras to police for free. The police would wear them all day and then put it into a dock. It would upload all the image data into a cloud-based platform called evidence.com, and they charge a subscription fee for evidence.com. But existing investors in Axon hated it because they were used to like this beautiful monopoly business in taser, growing 8 to 10% top line. But because they were losing all this money in the body camera business, it looked like it was trading on a P of like 70 times. But if you stripped out the losses of body cameras, it was on 20 times. Anyway, the whole point of that story is it ended up 20xing in the time that Thomas owned it in his fund. But it occurred to him that if he wasn't randomly on CNBC's website that day, he would have missed his best performing stock. So one of the first things we developed in Torient was the ability to collect a lot of news. So we're collecting around 30 to 35,000 articles a week from 179 sources, which is not just the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, but a whole bunch of different media, like the local Indian newspapers, local Arab newspapers, and we're collecting that all into a data repository and putting that into a idea triage funnel. And this is how we used to look at ideas. Hopefully that'll populate out. We used to get Torient to take all of those articles and look for companies that are undergoing a strategy change. This is not populated. And Torient would give us the name of the company, a one line as to what the strategy change was, and a paragraph exploring that in more detail. And we used to go through this manually and go, okay, that's not interesting, swipe left. That is interesting, swipe right. And vote on it. It was basically, Thomas and I have been in long-term relationships in the age of dating apps. So sadly, this is how we swipe. But we don't even swipe anymore. So our agents go through this for us now. They have 2 years of track record of how we like to vote. And so they'll go through and they'll say, okay, we think this is interesting because of X, Y, and Z reasons. So our agents do the swiping for us now. And then they build out that full initiation, as I said. I'm gonna stop there and open up for any questions. Just if we got time, do we have time?
Yeah, we do. We have a few minutes for questions. Just before we get to that, a couple of things that I think are really interesting what you're doing there. That origin story of what Thomas, if you didn't see that news article on CNBC, it's like this thing that with AI, if you don't have it, can you like what are the things you're missing out on? Whatever it is that you're doing, if you don't have AI doing this very same that sort of thing. We had this great debate on can you trust AI with money or not? We said basically, I mean, the punchline was, can you afford not to trust it? Can you afford not to have AI doing the things that humans are weak at? We sleek as much as I like to not. We have to, right? So, let's cool with that. I've seen a lot of the benefits of agents, the cool stuff that you're doing. So we'll show a little bit of a really more basic kind of version that they're not as skilled. The pun is intended there. But yeah, there's and just on initiation reports, as an analyst, I'm sure I knows this as well. It's the nightmare of any kind of equity analyst doing initiation reports. So thank God that there's AI now. Any questions in the audience? We've got time for a few. Yep, Ian right here, and then go there.
What the data sorry, what are your data sources? Are they publicly available or proprietary? Or?
I mean, they're publicly available if you pay for some of them. So a lot of our AI usage is really important to give context to the agents. And so I talked about the Substacks, etc., but they also have Quarter to give them all the earnings transcripts and earnings releases. They've got AlphaSense for expert transcripts and the like. They obviously pull from that repository of news that we're collecting. So I can't remember what it was, but we've now got over 4 million articles that are in our database. trying to think of what other sources they have. We get sell side research so there's no sell side people here, is there? No, we get sell side research that hits our email and it gets accessed through that, but we don't pay for any sell side APIs because they're very expensive. Nor do we pay for Bloomberg's API because it's expensive. So we're a startup fund, so we optimize on costs and accuracy. Actually, one cool thing I will talk about really, really quickly on that initiation thing is we do a lot of benchmarking. So this is effectively what this score is how good that initiation is across all of these different types of models, then how much it costs and how long it took. And you can see, so Claude Opus, obviously it scores the highest at roughly 8 out of 10, but it cost $33 and it took 6,000 seconds. Minimax, which is not too far off, 7.5, that cost $4.12 and took a little bit longer, but not like a huge amount longer. So this is one of the other things we do is a lot of cost optimization routing of different workflows that we have through the agents.
If you don't know that company, CD Projekt Red, they what was the game? The Witcher?
Yeah, Witcher and Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, Cyberpunk. If you didn't know that, so there you go. Question right.
I swear we own things other than game stocks as well. Only presenting the game stocks.
Not really a question, but could you demonstrate a stock pick? Is that
Sure. It'll take a. Actually, I will. I'll demonstrate a stock pick.
make a suggestion?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Can you look up SpaceX?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can do that, right? So I can go to the agents and I can go to Vega, who's our space analyst. Say, what do you think? Oh, SpaceX, especially now that it's traded.
Any plans? It's like sci-fi series, or kind of sci-fi. It's like more like real fiction. For All Mankind, there's a version of like a SpaceX there. Yeah, go ahead.
That's going, and we can have a look at that in a second. But I want to show you something cool about Vega as well. Is she specifically asked for in her skill set, being able to count satellites in the air that are on orbit. So that's something that she does through Cellestrack data. And she also looks at FCC regulatory filings, which is like, what the launch kind of filings. And she tracks launch milestones as well. Where is she? Okay, she might take a little while. She's a bit slow, but she's very effective.
I think it's cool. You got the animations there.
Oh yeah, we spend probably too much time on animating.
That's on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One more question, then we've got to get Meetup on.
Sorry.
Laurel.
Have you compared this to the deep research tools?
Yeah. Yeah, we do that a lot. And actually, when we started, we used deep research a lot. And what we found is because it's not as targeted and not kind of pointed to the context that we wanted to be pointed at, and also doesn't have things like that, like gaming return of capital framework that we've embedded into it, it's like less effective because it's built for a generic analyst. For example, on like the initiation process, I might show. Where's a recent initiation? Hemnet. Here's a recent initiation. So we got Cascade, who's our internet analyst, to do an initiation on Hemnet. And you can see here it says 0-touch initiation draft in big bold writing because it's basically saying no human has touched this report yet. So, take this with a grain of salt. But we have this thing called a triage, and there are different frameworks and heuristics that we use to make investment calls. And as an example, one of them is controversy. So we really like when a market is split on a stock. So when there's like a lot of buyers and a lot of sells, and that if you were to look up their earnings forecast 3 years out, like there's a wide dispersion of that because we think that there's a real opportunity there. So you can see here, basically the finding from Cascade on this. Sorry, forgot your name, Cascade, but you're not going to care. Cascade on this is there's possibly a controversy on that point of view, but that's one of the heuristics that we're looking for. And we've baked that into an initiation report that wouldn't come up in a deep research report for ChatGPT.
Well, if you have the MCP.
Potentially, yeah.
But then we were repeating what you're doing, or you've already done.
Yeah, and it's like all built into the system, if that makes sense.
I get it.
Yeah.
Great.
And the other thing that I think gets lost in showing you from the agent's perspective onwards is because we've been doing this for 2 years, there's been a whole evolution of putting information into Taurian as well. Like even simple things like most investment analysts still have all of their research either in like Word documents or like Google Sheets, stuff like that. We moved all of our research to Markdown, and I like had never used a Markdown before. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then it was actually really beneficial to do this because that's the language that large language models know how to read. Sorry for the swearing.
That's fine. That AI will not take care of it. Join me in thanking Armia Rosenberg. And she's been so kind enough to join us right before having to fly off to Melbourne.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so
I'll give
much.
you a SpaceX analysis in a second.
Yeah, she'll show you later. Thank you so much. We'll get Arturo up on stage to the principal's office. Have you connected to the Zoom?
Yeah.
There's an invite there. While Arturo is doing that, I think a couple of the interesting things there, apart from like having like the agents there in the mix a bit, but on that point around like, there's a difference between generic stuff. You just ask ChatGPT to do a bit of research for you, whether it's ink research or it's something else. If it doesn't have that specific context, it's going to be a lot harder for it to actually find you the thing that you're trying to do. I am chief AI officer at a law firm, and I find that, breaking tasks down into specific steps and controlling, because you build yourself, when you control those things, you get far better answers than if you to just, ask like a generic AI, even Harvey and some of these other like big tools. If they don't have the steps that you're taking in there, it's going to be a lot harder. More on the AI law stuff later. Did you see the invite?
Yeah. All right.
You need to join, and then
I should have told you to join before. Have you joined?
I might just, if anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn and must be that
Oh, yeah.
civic stuff, I'm happy to get our agents seeing right here.
And it's whenever Army is in the AFR, you might steer on a what do you call it, an elevator. Those interactive signs on there. There you go. Arturo's in the waiting room. Let's get him out of the waiting room and okay. Here, present. So Arturo, what are you going to talk about today? Arturo's like he's in hallucination.
Multitasking is not my thing. I gotta figure it out. So I'm going to talk to you about a bunch of shit because I never talk about just one thing. But I'm going to start off with a product version of a lot of the work that we've been doing over a while now, and in a way, it's a culmination of the outcome from Project Acacia, but it's also been an amalgamation, let's say, of all of the things that we've been doing with various customers. And after spending a ridiculous amount of time on understanding how you effectively represent financial assets and financial workflows on chain, we ended up building, let's call it a non-banking infrastructure or banking infrastructure for non-banks, however you want to put it. It solved a lot of the settlement issues that we see today. But at the end of the day, it was really, really difficult to use. Not because of these primitives. A lot of the things that you're doing are actually quite difficult in terms of finance. To set up these different financial structures is something that is actually quite complicated. And that's effectively where AI agents come in various different forms. But what they're amazing at doing is really understanding, contextualizing what it is that you need and help you achieve that in a quite a complex environment. So effectively what we have now is partnerships with a few customers that's where their focus is really delivering the best customer experience for their users. That sounds a bit weird, thinking that you're focusing on customer experience. Well, at the same time, you're almost fully on chain when it comes to financial settlements, because Web3 is usually not that user friendly, but it can be. It can actually be extremely user friendly, and even more so with the AI on top of it. Now. What I'm showing you here is a starting point, which effectively is how I'd like the people that are interested in building with this platform to deliver customer experiences almost from scratch. Effectively, where we're amalgamating the entire process of creating accounts, KYCing customers, doing so together with Red Belly and Avra, so that there is this traceable exercise, let's say, of some form of intent, or something that a customer is using that is completely traceable yet confidential. But at the same time, that is fully integrated into an agentic infrastructure that allows you to guide your customer, guide your user through whatever commercial experience it is that you're delivering. So we start off with this site that has a lot of explanations about how we're achieving these things. And the point is to bring builders to that experience with a lot of different examples, GitHub repositories over how you create your escrows, how you create rental agreements, how you create asset-backed securities even, and you connect that to your customer infrastructure. So it really is, let's call it a go-to from the very beginning. Now, before I show you the platform itself or elements of the platform, I do want to show you a piece that is something that we're building out quite actively right now. And it really goes down to the premise of what the second part of settle now intelligently means. And it actually touches a lot on the topics that we discussed previously. My background is as a derivatives trader, a systematic trader. I used to build up a lot of the infrastructure for my own trading, and it took a ridiculous amount of time to do so in terms of setting up all of these macro indicators and so forth. But it was actually really, really useful. And I noticed as I then went and spoke to many of the originators of the structures of ABSs and so forth, that they're actually doing a lot of this work in the blind because they don't have the analytics. And not only do they have the analytics, because of course you could spend a lot of money on getting yourself a Bloomberg, but there's a difference between having the analytics and having that baked into your experience. That's something that's typically not done because the time it takes to build all of these different services is just far too high for you to have, let's call it a payment service that has a lot of this information baked into it and presented in a way that actually makes sense. So what we're looking at here is effectively a private credit monitor that just goes through an immense amount of open information. And all of this is gathered with agents. It's presented with agents. And in many cases, it's actually analyzed with agents, but it's analyzed with agents on the basis of it having an actual quantitative infrastructure that is highly deterministic. So effectively, what we've done is that we've set up a bunch of different indicators that we know how they work, how you're meant to interpret them, so that you're not effectively just throwing in a bunch of numeric data into a prompt and expect it to figure things out, because that's usually not how things work. Now, as you can see, we have the global macro. These are the biggest pieces that are of interest, especially when you're setting up a new origination or hedging principle for private credit. But we also have things that we're a private credit, the cockpit, let's say, which is effectively a bunch of analytics that you can use to understand various scenarios of what ifs. Especially in high risk environments like now, it's really important if you're, for example, going into a new type of let's say, residential loan book, and you want to understand, well, what if the interest rates go up, and what happens if oil gets to a specific place and so forth, right? And again, all of this is kind of embedded, or embeddable rather, into the customer experience that you're delivering yourself. Now, I want to show you. No, it's still working. Okay. Died. One sec.
did you not pray to the demo gods? No,
I never do.
like we all know that we're supposed
I
to do
don't
this.
do that.
All right, get down and dance.
There we go.
All good.
Okay, perfect. So there's a lot of information. I don't want to bore you too much with that information, but what I will just show you is how easy it is actually to embed this type of information into a user experience for anybody that is getting into property leases. These tend to be quite long lived. They will actually have a lot of interest rate exposure, even if people don't really think about it that way. But they do, and I think that that's one of the bigger problems that we have, and it's that if you're not in a specific area of finance where you're effectively counting almost every single percentage point for everything, you're worse. It's worse that you're almost blind to the fact that every number actually does affect you, and that there are decisions that need to be made on the back of this information. Now, just because you have that information doesn't mean that you know what to do with it. And that's really where the embeddable nature of this intelligence comes into play, and the value of the agents within the process of actually being able to just set up a rental agreement, for example, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. Now you're saying that it's a rental agreement. I'll call it R3. It's a demo. I'll add specific users. I can actually have another entity be the manager, or I could actually just manage it myself. Set in all of these different parameters, create that agreement, and all of a sudden that then becomes visible to the other party, and it gets condensed into all of these on-chain primitives that we defined before. So we effectively have NFTs for all of the payment obligations. We have transferability of these payment obligations, which effectively means that I could be a real estate agent that has a contract with a landlord. That contract is a steady flow of income. I can take that steady flow of income then, and something that's actually quite common within real estate agents, I'll sell this forward, or I'll use it for financing, so-called rent roll trading. And because it's all on chain, it's actually really easy to trace and to reconcile all of these different positions. At the same time, it's actually really easy to use, because we have that agentic layer on top of it that is informed with the macro risks that actually do affect us on a daily basis. Now, I focused on the rent piece because that's one of the biggest customers that we're working with. But if you're into defining any form of legal agreement that has some form of payment obligation, let's say, for example, another standard simple escrow, or anything that is a little bit more complex, then it could be an interesting route to take, and I'm really happy to have a conversation with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Arturo. We'll think of one to taking questions, so we're going to move on. And if I did open up the floor to questions, you'll all remain here until the end of time, because it is Arturo. But that's okay. He has built some really cool stuff. Before we get our next speakers up on stage, just because it is with this thematic, the next speakers are going to be Lydia and Sophie. I'm just going to share something because, as Arturo pointed that out, there's some things that we're building as well. Everyone can build with AI. Why do I have two mics? It doesn't matter. There we go. Okay, that's going to roll off. So let's just escape out of this. So I work at a law firm. I'm chief AI officer at the law firm. Some things that we're doing that are interesting. Obviously, this is Yield Fabric here, but we've got a lot of clients and we're handling stuff for those clients. So you can see this thing on screen. I ingested from Claude Code ingested a whole heap of the documents that are in here, so API references, etc. Whether you copy and paste it, whether you point the AI agents to it, can they read it? Can they digest all of this information that's here? That is important because that's part of the context. But then it comes to building, these things and creating, in our case for the law firm,
there's two parts to this that are really interesting with what Arturo's created, this thing called Yield Fabric, as he showed you before. It's the blockchain for proof, and then it is the AI agents for the smarts. You can have one or the other, but I feel like it's going to be a much weaker kind of system that you have in place if you don't find a way to balance the two. And it's been done greatly in terms of RBA Project Acacia with what Arturo's done. We're experimenting with that at my law firm, Madison Marcus. I've got Kate here from the team, so a lawyer at the team that is working on some cool stuff in immigration space. Sorry?
Chris is here too.
Oh, Chris is here. Hey, I've got two of them. There you go. I don't leave without my lawyers, so don't mess with me. But the cool thing is that with the clients that we have, the matters, this is all synthetic information. We're not going to show you like real information here. Anyone know Contoso from the Microsoft demos and stuff when you build with that? Some nods. This is Quantoso, but it's just a fake client with like some pretend agreements. This is all built on top of Yield Fabric. So instead of having to directly build on top of AWS or that kind of stuff, or on top of a blockchain, imagine that what Yield Fabric has there are some primitives in the AI agent space, in the blockchain space, so that what we want to do is when there are milestones happening on contracts that we're working on, we can keep account of the documentation. We're not putting the documents on the blockchain, but we're putting the proofs, the cryptographic hashes that these things have been done, and it's been recorded this date and it can't be tampered with. Those are the sorts of things that are going to help us when we're using AI to prove that we haven't just put it into a black box and come back with answers, but we've actually been very careful and thought about the process. So you can build on top of what others are doing. This happened from coming to meetups like this. You might have some other ideas, and we're keen to show you more of that kind of stuff later on. But in the meantime, we are here for another great interview, what it's like to build AI in a regulated entity. Sophie from Zodia and Lydia from KuCoin and our association. Come on down. I'll take a seat.
See some outfits.
Yep. Go. You grab that one. See, grab this one.
Amazing. Thanks, Mark. Well, welcome, Sophie. Sophie has had a very busy few days at DEFCON. Ryan Hodges is your MD, and I believe he was off sick. So how many?
Yeah, it's back down, normally.
Is he?
I did 4 yesterday, yeah.
And so is this a fifth?
Yes.
Nice. Well practiced there.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like you to give a little bit of an introduction to yourself and how you got into the space, where you're working, what you do at Zodia, and just general overview.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. Great to be here. I'm Sophie Bowler. I'm the Chief Risk and Compliance Officer at Zodia Custody. So, Zodia Custody is a digital asset custodian. We were set up, and we're still open West Ham and Chartered Bank. We were set up back in 2020. So, exactly what it does on our tin. So, custody of pure digital assets. We don't do fiat. When I joined just over 3 years ago, we were in 2 countries. We're in 6 countries now. And yeah, my role is to lead the global risk, compliance, and regulatory strategy for the group. And I actually only moved out here in November last year. I was in the UK in the head office there, and I moved out to continue my role just to be based in a nice place, but also to support Ryan and to help Visionary Entity build the program there and achieve the AFSL license. So that's been the focus. And now, yeah, I think in the last 6 months, AI has just got crazy. So we've really had to rapidly deploy that into our firm, which I'm going to talk more about today.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Sophie. I mean, fellow English woman, we're both not convicted criminals, I swear. But yeah, on the topic of AI, I guess we would like to understand, crypto firms, how they're using AI in operations, and what improving to be the most successful use cases so far.
Yeah, so I think it was the last 6 months. I mean, obviously we've known about AI for some time, and we've been utilizing it in the firm, but in more of a basic way. And then I think in the last 6 months there was this, oh my God, we absolutely really need to get on board with this now and implement it really effectively, very quickly. So I think some things that we've been doing that have been really successful in a specific digital asset firm is embedding it into code as well to enable the development of code into the tech team. And we're already seeing rapid benefits and efficiencies in doing that. And then coming from my angle in risk and compliance, I think so many different areas. So digital assets, we have to do risk assessments and due diligence on those risks on those digital assets, product risk assessments. We've integrated them quite substantially into our financial crime controls as well to support us in identifying financial crime risks that we may not necessarily have spotted before. I think in the legal space as well, really supporting on legal analysis and drafting regulatory documents, drafting policies and procedures. And I think that's actually helped quite substantially with, there's some enhanced AML rules coming into effect just in a couple of weeks, helping to do gap analyses against these. So, it all sounds a little bit boring in the risk and compliance space, but it's absolutely enabled things so substantially. And I guess that's the key word is enable. We're not at a point yet where we're able to sort of rely on it fully. But I think there will be ways that we can get to that point in certain areas, but we've very much used it to enable things, and it's saved so much time and just so many benefits, and just increased benefits from a risk management perspective as well, which really helps in the regulated space.
Yeah, you can definitely see the upside of AI and its potential. And I think it's great that you are ahead of that curve and kind of be proactive in this approach. But then I guess the other side is risk. So that's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
What is your experience with, I guess, creating frameworks around risk management and meeting the expectations of regulatory bodies out in Australia?
So yeah, I think that's the thing is we want to immediately grasp the opportunity with AI, but we have to do it in a really careful manner, particularly in the regulated space. So when we had to move really, really quickly to try and deploy AI, and at the same time, me and my team then had to create a governance and risk framework around that, because you have to we need to capitalize on this opportunity, but you've got to deploy it in the right way. So we very much developed that framework. So an AI policy, a process such that only approved AI use cases can actually go live. So an intake process, risk assessment process, what's a high risk use case, what's a low risk use case, what differentiated controls need to go into that, and how do you get approvals? Haven't made sure there was ownership in the business as well around these AI models. Even as well as embedding security controls into our framework such that we don't have someone rogue going ahead utilizing a different AI tool that we've not able to approve. What else have we got? So we've done lots of training, risk assessments, approval attestations. We've developed as many controls as we can, and I think that some of this is really important as well because, for example, if any of you have got a presence in the EU has got an AI Act now that's come into effect, and a core part of that act, which brings Zodio within the scope, comes into effect in August. So it absolutely mandates that you have to have all this framework. And I think EU loves legislation. They're a little bit far further ahead, but I think we'll start to see that from lots of regulators, including our own, around making sure you've got this in place. So it's just good to get ahead of it and develop that framework. And then, to be honest, it gives you that security when you've rolled something out that something's hopefully not going to go wrong, and it's been used in the right way. So that's been important to us.
Interesting what you say about the EU. I know you have a lot of conversations with the regulatory bodies out here, which I can imagine is fun. Is that something they're moving towards as well? Do you see a copy and paste scenario with Australia just taking, I guess, what digs that originate?
They haven't said anything. I guess a lot of our conversations have been around like the AFSL, but I think Australia and naturally, as you know, any jurisdiction should take benefits from other different pieces of legislation from around the world. So I think the EU have moved really quick on it, and they always tend to. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something, relatively soon, or we started to get some communications coming out from the regulators to say, this is what we're thinking of developing and implementing. And I'm sure it will look something similar to what's in the EU.
So you're going to have the digital asset build to look after, and also do AI build to get your head around. Well, I guess on that then, what would you say the key challenges would be for you or funds implementing AI? And what can you tell maybe potentially people building AI, what they need to adapt for?
I think one of the key challenges is the fact that once everyone's got it in their heads, they want it to be rolled out immediately, like absolutely immediately. And you're under that pressure, even from very senior people, we need it now, it's absolutely essential. We have Claude for Code like rolled out into one tech. So I think that's just one of the dangers of not of trying to roll it out too quickly. And obviously, we want to move quick. And in digital asset firms, we do have that capability to move much more at speed. But it's just doing it in the right way. I think governance first, like don't retrofit it after the fact, because I have seen other firms, even in Zoyu itself, sometimes things can go wrong. It doesn't always go perfect. So just that puts you in the best place possible to, if you just think about it up front. I think another thing is around restricted data and personal data, making sure that that doesn't go into the models, and making sure there's controls around that, because again, that cannot be good. And a lot of people that people use AI just I guess so normally now, it's very easy to forget that type of thing, and input prohibited data or personal data. So I think that's another thing. And then on data, it's just data quality. I think someone made a comment earlier, sort of like crap in, crap out. That is just a big mistake I think people make, because they're just utilizing it so freely and not necessarily checking the data source. I think the only other thing I want to pull out is just now everyone's using it for absolutely everything, even like just talking to each other. And it's just like you can speak English, I think. So I think that's just another thing I'm starting to see in the firm is it's being used so much. I feel like we may, yeah. I mean, I think we'll discuss about it a bit further as well. But there is a bit of a worry. It's being used for even the tiny little things that you don't need to. So it's sort of like how to make sure that that's not impacting in the work environment.
Yeah, I think there's a stat out there now that we're the first generation to be less intelligent than the one that came before us. And no, I kind of feel that.
Yeah, well, I get things sent to me. I'm like, you've not written that email.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just like being a bit careful around that, and when you're sending it to clients and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess it can write emails. It can now trade. It can create transactions.
Yes.
In the digital asset space, more specifically, where do you see AI moving, and what kind of do you do this come out in the next year or so?
Well, I think because I need to be fair, but I think Zoyu was probably a little bit further behind. That there's some a bigger digital asset firms that I think were way more in front of us, and that's sort of what put us under pressure to move into the space. I think one that's in digital assets, but also in traditional finance, but I think in digital assets we've got that ability to move much quicker, is around financial crime controls. So actually, at the moment, when you're managing financial crime controls, you may have like a team that does screening, you might have a team that does transaction monitoring, you might have a team that does all the KYC. Well, actually, there's lots of different risks that come up across those, and you don't have that full picture together. That's all done in silos typically, and it's even worse in much bigger institutions. It's very much done in silos. So I think that's going to be a big area that AI brings all that together and actually really helps in like identification of financial crime risks and to support compliance teams. In traditional finance, there's more of and I guess they're a bit more worried about bringing AI in, and that they can be really like big operations. But I think in digital assets we can move much quicker on that. So I think that's the key one. I think obviously I've mentioned code. I think just so much more in across all the business to sort of bring everything together. And just to enable things ultimately. I feel like the future. I don't. I saw some things tonight that I thought these are absolutely amazing. I didn't even know that they were available.
Yeah.
So I honestly think it will move so quick, and God, we don't know what we're going to see, but I think it will be great.
Absolutely. Bolo, thank you so much. So he's an absolute powerhouse in this industry. So anyone who's very quiz that form risk and compliance, she's the woman with the interesting bits. Yeah. But no, thank you so much, Holly. That's what he's joined me in Thank
Where is this, man?
Thank you. Amazing. Some really cool stuff there. And yeah, there's anyone in compliance? Anyone? Okay. There is some interest there. One sec. All right. Give me a sec. I'm gonna get Chris to make sure that the cameras are okay because he's coming up on stage to sit right here. But just on that, I think what's really been cool about today is you've seen some people speaking, showcasing stuff that they're doing, talking about the cool stuff that they're doing. All of this is Lego blocks, right?
you'll see this and you'll be like, oh, that Lego block set that kid has, that's really cool. I want to do that. What do I have here? Well, how do I get that? Well, you've got AI that can help out. But all of it needs to be safe. You've got the rise of all these businesses starting to use AI. What Chris and I have been seeing and starting to consult on actually. We brought AI governance into the businesses that we're working in, but also we're seeing a lot more of this kind of stuff that's needed around AI governance. And to talk about this fascinating topic that Chris loves, much. When I say that sarcastically, I'm hallucinating. You've got to turn the mic on. I do. Yeah, and there we go. Okay, cool. So Chris, why are we talking about AI governance?
It's just this little thing that started creeping up over the last sort of 6 months. Like people utilizing AI crazily in businesses, letting data go all over the place. And suddenly organizations, particularly ones that have a lot of risk associated with their standard protocols and technologies, have realized, crap, we need to get a foothold on what we're actually doing with AI before something bad really does start to happen.
Absolutely. And, you've seen some of those use cases where people haven't properly done things. Like, I mean, number three there is human oversight. Law firms in New York, 2 times actually. It happened once straight away, and then a year after ChatGPT came out, where they didn't check the AI answers, the citations that were shown, and got in big trouble because that's a really high risk kind of area. So, there's a few things here, but let's just go through it. Transparency and explainability. If you just had the AI as a black box, what's the issues that you're seeing there? Why should we have transparency in terms of like what the AI is doing?
I mean, the main reason is it could go wild, it can go rogue. You've got issues with it hallucinating. And if you don't have confinements around what information that it's providing back to users within the business, it's going to start giving you false information, false data. You're going to start having people send out, you know, information to the public that is completely wrong. If you've looked in the media with, I think with PwC or EY,
One of the big four.
one of the big four. So situations like that start to occur. So it's really important that you have some kind of framework in place to make sure there is transparency and explainability around what you can do, what you can't do, what it's supposed to be used for, when and where. That's really, really important.
We saw some of it on screen before with our mains presentation, where you've got the agents there and they've got all their different skills. So it could be easily explained what skill it is that they're using. If you've got audit logs as part of that, you've got something far better than a human. Imagine asking a real analyst, like, okay, can you explain to me why you did this at 5:55 p.m. on a Friday? It's going to be very hard, but with AI, the jury's out on whether it can explain itself and you can trust the explanation. That's another thing. But like, at least it can show you because it records it. That's a big thing, having those logs.
The other thing is, like, imagine if you're in a business that's doing a lot of development work and you've got the AI to make some updates to your solution, your software, and suddenly the next day someone comes to the platform and there's something completely random there that shouldn't be there because late at night, obviously the AI went a bit rampant and has made up something based on an input that someone did the day before. And you don't know why, you don't know what's happened, you don't know who did it, because you don't have that transparency or that data or that analytics to back what people are actioning. So you can rewind or you can get to the bottom of what the problem is and prevent it from happening in the future.
The next one on data provenance and consent there, to be able to do things with delegated authorities. This is where blockchain does start to come in, because unless it was recorded on a database, it could be a database, but better on a blockchain where you can. And you don't have to learn how to build on blockchain because you've got tools like Arturo and others are building where you just have this thing that you can point your Claude Code or Codex to start building for you. But data provenance is really interesting because unless you can trust the source of the data, how can you trust the insights that the agents are making? Whether you're doing that or you would like Zodi custody, doing custody work and compliance, your function in particular there are things where there's data that you can trust and cannot. So I think that's important. And most importantly, Chris, here is, the human oversight. Laurel, you and I we spoke about this earlier, having human in the loop. We also see and have a show. What's it called, Chris?
The experts in the loop.
Plug. But it is.
Check it out. Amina was on an episode, not one.
Actually, yeah, she was. Oh, funny that it's here. Hi.
But in fact, her business is a perfect example of this. But you've got agents running rampant in the background, doing lots of research, investigating where the best investments are. But at the end of the day, the humans are the one that make the final decision, and that is incredibly important as we get more advanced with agents and more advanced with LLMs and all the different systems that are in place, having that human oversight is so important.
Going from humans in the loop to then some cases, because you'd rather a doctor, not just like any human looking at something that AI puts out to do with medical research. So I'd rather an expert there. But then there are some instances where it is better. Sure, you can have the human in the process, but I'd argue that it's far better to have the agent actually being the one that comes up with, is this, giving you the probability of this is right or not, because you can ingest far more information. So we might even evolve to AITL, agents in the loop, at some point. You could argue that's already there, but some interesting stuff there.
That's why experts in the loop.
Yes. The expert is the agent in that case.
They're actually called adversarial agents.
Exactly. So yeah, so you can bring that kind of stuff in, and I think when you do when I mean is like doing some of the research, you've got adversarial agents going on there. I've got some stuff. I haven't prayed to the demo gods properly just yet, so I'm going to show something in the legal space, but agents do debate. I'll see if that works. Model and agent accountability, we've spoken about that a little bit just throughout, but basically having it so that if the AI has made a mistake, and in those debate rounds and adversarial kind of like networks, that you can see that they're doing that. I'll see if I've got some examples of that. But
It's that accountability point, which is the big one, is like holding both the human and the models accountable for the actions that are occurring, and being able to get to the bottom of why and how it happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then calibrating the risks and governance there around that last one, risk proportionality. So it really depends on the type of thing that you're doing. When you're setting up AI governance, if you are doing that yourself in a firm, just doing it for your startup or consulting to firms, just thinking about like, where are the risks? Like, what does this business do? Does it have to adhere to, the EU AI Act is one. ISO standards as well. ISO 27001, a lot of businesses get that. So they, there's a bit of elements on systems there. But ISO 42001 is the one that is coming out more and more. That is the uplift from 27001. Great names out there. Hopefully you're not asleep yet. But it is important for regulated entities, big corporates, consultancies, etc., to be aware of all these things happening. And then there's other, like local Australian kind of talks consultations, the OAIC, which I forget what the acronym stands for, but they've got a consultation out there on AI use, and then much more. But Chris also had a few things here that people do forget often when it comes to these things.
Particularly when it comes to setting up and implementing governance frameworks. It's that whole culture and adaptability and the education and training side of it. Like, there's one thing to implement governance, it's another thing for making sure your business is following it. And so the cultural shift, making sure people are a part of that governance framework, making sure that they're able to feed back into it, making sure that they understand who is in charge and who's making the final decision, so they can talk with those people. And there is an open conversation around how they can potentially do certain things either inside or outside those frameworks, or update those frameworks, or get new platforms with to work within those frameworks. And then obviously the education and framing, like, it's the last thing you want is to give this big wiki document over to a company and be like, hey, here's your governance framework. Like, no one's going to follow that. No one's going to sift through 30,000 pages worth of governance frameworks when they're busy, they don't have time to do that stuff. So how do you make sure you're training and educating these people in the right way? And it's a very step-by-step process. Either, it could be as simple as giving them a podcast summary of how to do things, but making sure you're sitting with them, walking through it, guiding them, not just putting this like red tape mandate over the top of them, because it will always fall apart.
And I think it's habits, right? Like, unless the training stuff, it's not just like one off, here's some CPD points, do this, and then they forget about it. But it's like, how do you encourage and activate? Maybe it's lunch and learns regularly. Maybe it is walking around, in our case, the law firm, and seeing how people are using Harvey and other AI tools. Yeah.
I was gonna say, one way I saw that was really well done is they sat some people down, gave them ChatGPT and said, hey, we're gonna build something really quickly together. And everyone had to go building stuff. And then they looked at and interrogated what they had built. And it was like, tokens were embedded, APIs were embedded, you had people revealing information or having data risk by having stuff locally, people pushing things into platforms like Superbase that had the security keys that were open for everyone to be able to see. So it's stuff like that. When you make them go through it, they start to understand why it's so important.
All the things that Chris did when he was speaking to me about the stuff that he was building.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey man, check this out. It's like, Chris, I've now used it. Why is my token limit gone?
Shout outs to my brother. He's a nurse. Doesn't really do much in this space, but he's a gamer, so he likes to play around with AI tools and stuff. And he was looking at something and saw that, the AI built this thing, and look, I've got the data in here, but there wasn't a database connected. defaulted to creating mock data. Then he was wondering where did it go and all that kind of stuff. So it's this cool stuff that's, you know, happening where people that wouldn't ever have touched it before are now doing that. And I think it's great. Like we've got this really big learning opportunity. And if you don't understand it, guess what? You can ask the AI and you can ask others. You can come to these events and learn. Chris,
That's it
anything
for me.
further?
Yeah,
That's it. If anyone is building and doing some cool stuff in the space and wants to know more about AI governance, please do come chat with us. And to all of our guests, we're going to do some cool demo stuff now. Do you want to check back?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. Yep. Leave that one there. Cool. Thank you. And then we're going to get to the really cool networking and stuff. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, couple things. I am building in the AI space. Let's go to some things. This is Legal Claw, Open Claw, you know, inspired, blah, blah, blah. Some things that we're doing there. Let's get to fact timeline. One of the first things that you have to do as lawyers, apart from not dropping a bottle, is you have to, when you get evidence, they do these things called chronologies. So here's an example of where instead of just going to a tool and going, hey, give me a chronology of this, ChatGPT, Claude, etc. First of all, you got to think about, can you actually do that with, you know, sensitive data? This is using Azure's OpenAI. So it's all onshore. The database is here as well. This is a made up case. So I'm not showing real examples here, but Chung, drink driving, my good mate Chung, let's have a look at some of the, you know, evidence that's there. We'll just look at a few documents, but I'm just going to start the process. And you can see here, this is part of the breaking it down of step by step. Instead of a black box, which would normally happen when you send it, sure, it will show you reasoning when it goes to like Claude or like ChatGPT. They have those steps in there when they're thinking, but you've got no control of that. All of these things have been built by hand, by scratch, using Claude. So, you know, my hand's typing, but it was, you know, Claude doing, and also a bit of swearing, you know, sometimes when it doesn't work, it needs to be seared, but it's validating the facts. If you don't like a process of how a tool that you use today works and you want a better process, go build it. If you don't know how to build it, come talk to us. We can help you. You know, this thing is now showing that, okay, there's these facts. Because there were two documents, there were two conflicting facts. So we can either decide ourselves as the lawyer that's doing it, or get the AI to do a suggestion. I'm going to just apply the suggestion there. Now that I have that, I can save the chronology. Because you've got that base now as lawyers, you can do further things. You can generate some theories on top of that. So who's our client? Our client is Chung, who loves a bit of a drink after a meetup. Don't do it. And then who's the other side? I won't worry about the matter type there. That's okay. And it is that fact timeline with the 26 facts that was just created today. The AI will now generate some theories and try to validate it and try to, you know, combat itself. You can use it for research as well. Here's a previous one. If I just hit refresh on this, where it's a bunch of different agents, not as cool as Amina's ones. You know, primary researcher is not a great name. Devil's advocate is not either. I'd rather Baku and I don't know, Leon. Maybe there's an Arturo in there. Arturo's one is going to be always dour, but really smart. So, you know, I'm joking. But you can see some of the stuff it's doing here. It's looking up case law. So it's connected. You know, getting data doesn't have to be something where you just rely on the models. We've connected it to case law. It's pulling real cases. It's analyzing those cases. And there is, with the devil's advocate, there is some research going on there. But then there's another thing, whilst that works in the background, here is this thing where it's telling me, the human, that it's found some insights. It's tried to attack itself on those theories, and it wants me to either accept, modify, reject, or push harder on these. I'm going to just accept all of these, and it'll apply those decisions. That's saved. I can do further work with it. The point of all of this is that in the place that I'm working in, I've only been at the law firm for 6 months. I don't come from a legal background, but I understand processes and I know AI. So bringing these tools together, you can solve a lot of things, but solve it in a better way. So understand that you keep the data here on shore, understanding that you not only you know, have to break things down and understand by sitting with the lawyers and going through what they do, looking at existing tools online as well. You could be inspired by what others have created and just try to create it yourself. It does get to the trade-off. There is a risk trade-off here. We have to maintain this now. There is a cost to doing this. It's not just, I think Uber's CTO said that they spent their year's worth of budget for tokens within like 4 months or so. So you have to think about, where does it make sense? I think I heard a really good analogy. I spent $700 on Claude Code tokens to replicate a $9 a month app, you know? So have a think about, like, where does it actually make sense? That's when you get to open source models, but the trade-off there, and I've seen this, is that they're slower and they're not as great at doing certain things, even if you do break down steps. So some cool stuff there. We'll show more of that over the next, meetups that Experts in the Loop show. Chris and I also go through all of that. But just in some closing messages, I think one of the cool things when you're building in this space, whether it is blockchain or AI, is that you want to do some evaluations, real world evaluations. It's great to do a lot of what they call benchmarks in the AI space, but unless you're actually doing it in workflows that you're dealing with day to day, you could have great Opus 4.8 is the best model at the time, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't actually work for you. So I think evals or evaluations and tests are probably the main part that you want to do. Something that we had to do, in this case is what it's showing, and we share these slides as well, by the way, so I'll show you the website. Something that we had to do was, if you're using AI tools, a lot of lawyers, and I think the legal industry is one of the spaces that is moving the fastest in terms of how many people, it's not just the developers, but it's the lawyers. There's a cool community called Legal Quants, and they're building their own tools and learning and failing and learning again how to do things. One of them tried to solve a problem of redactions, dealing with PII, personally identifiable information. If you've got that, you can't send that into an AI tool. Now, you might manually redact and change names. It goes from Sophie to person one. It goes from not centralized to organization one. Someone tried to build a tool using open source stuff to actually do that. I tested it. It failed 5 out of 10 times. So it wasn't that great. I set up my own virtual private server. I tried a few tests, and 5 out of 10 was like the first run. We did a few more, tried tweaking it, still not enough. We went with Microsoft Presidio, tried that. There was a partial solution there, but it still failed. The cool thing was that when you explore these AI models, Quen's the third one there, but there is a trade-off to doing that. It's not as capable as even GPT-4o, which is what's available on Microsoft here in Australia. Through failing and trying all these things, you come to a realization that, hang on a second, we can do something deterministic that doesn't even sit on a virtual private server. It just sits in the app that we built, and then put GPT-4o that stays in Australia on top of that to do the double checking. What the first pass didn't check, the second pass will, and then you can even have another agent just checking itself. So everything stays in Australia, 100% accuracy on low, medium, and complex documents at getting rid of, and we tested on pretend documents, right? They're all full of like pages and pages of research, but they're not real. And we could send that into Claude Code to actually do its testing itself. 100% accuracy on something where you've built the struts, the infrastructure, etc. So the cool thing there is that it's not just these benchmarks. You have to build with real type stuff. GPT-4o, it might not be that. You might be doing stuff with Anthropic. I think the lessons are that you've got to try things out. You've got to break them down. Don't rely on what you read in the headlines, apart from Fable. That is real. That is gone. But for what reason? Who knows? Marketing, maybe. But I think the cool thing is that as you come and network, whether you're building in blockchain, AI, quantum, etc., there is a great community here. Make sure you connect with all the speakers. Mina has about 20 minutes maybe before you go. 5? 20. Okay, cool. So come chat with everyone. Sophie, Lydia, Arturo. Don't chat to me. I'm just joking. Definitely chat to Chris. Thank you so much for all your time. Please do finish off all the drinks, beer, and pizzas. Take garlic bread home, and thank you. Oh, and if you're building something and want to connect, do chat with us.